Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt, and 2012 I was the congressional candidate for the 5th Congressional District, which all of the 39th Ward is in. Northwest side of Chicago goes out to the suburbs. In 2012 I received 4,600 votes in the 39th Ward, and I feel there is enough Republicans that could make a big difference in this Aldermanic election. If you figure maybe 20 to 22,000 people will come out and vote, and there's 4 candidates, so we're going to try to figure out which candidate has conservative views or have views that as a Republican you could sort of accept.
Right. Hi, my name is Biela. I was the Republican candidate for the 15th District State Rep race just this past year in 2018. I also live in the 39th Ward. I live in the Edgebrook neighborhood. And as Dan was saying, my district when I ran also encompasses most of 39th Ward. We're missing about like 5 or 6 precincts. 15 doesn't have them. So I'm familiar with the 39th Ward. And I think it's really important for us to, as Republicans, be active in these ward elections, because in 39th we're about a third of the votes, and we need to have a voice and understand where these candidates stand, and where we can find where our views align.
Well, the other thing I should probably add, I have lived between Montrose Avenue and Lawrence Avenue almost my entire life, so there is nobody that knows this all these neighborhoods. Chicago River, which is in the 39th
Right.
Ward, I probably know more square inches of the Chicago River when I was 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have a great understanding of the people in the neighborhood,
right.
people I've talked to, and
Well, and I think we've got to know folks just by canvassing. You can really get to know the communities,
Right.
and we did that in our elections. I'm more of a newcomer. I've only been here 10 years. But,
so we put a questionnaire together, and we had 6 questions which we consider our conservative questions. And the first question we came up with was, we were talking about the amount of property tax we're paying and the overall tax burden. I mean, what people got to realize, when you live in Illinois, tax burden, besides property tax, you're paying a 10% sales tax.
Right.
So you start adding all these taxes up.
The nickel and dime taxes, the gas, the cell phone, your water.
Right.
It all adds up.
Right. Oh, you're on your utility bill, you got a tax on your mobile phone, on your home phone. I mean, on your cable bill. I mean, it nickels and dimes you.
I mean, it's everything from the city level, county, and state.
Right.
Yeah. So I think for Republicans, these are our most important issues, is the taxation.
So there's 4 candidates running.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been talking about the 4 candidates, and on this question here, who do you think has the best view on
taxes?
Right.
Well, I mean, it's in some ways it's hard to tell, because all of them say they don't want to raise property taxes because it's not too popular idea to put out there.
Right.
I mean, obviously there needs to be raising revenue. All the candidates across the board have solutions for that. Well, maybe should we introduce the candidates before we start talking about them?
All right.
Yeah, there's basically 4 candidates running. We have Robert Murphy, who is the Democratic committeeman for the 39th Ward. He's an architect that lives in the Forest Glen neighborhood. Then we have Samantha Nugent. She's a, I guess, newcomer to politics. She lives in Saguenash. She's kind of, I think, aligned, I think we can say that, with kind of the remnants of Alderman Lorino's workings.
The machine.
The machine,
Right.
Yes, it is the machine. And then we have Casey Smagala, who's running. He lives in Albany Park, and kind of trying to run from an outsider perspective, even though he has some ties back to Lorino too.
Well, he's a young guy, and he graduated from North Park College, and he's active in the community.
He's very active in the community.
Right.
And then Joe Duplichin, I hope I'm saying his name right. He's a police officer and a former military veteran. I'm not sure. I think, was he Gladstone Park? Was that his neighborhood? I'm not sure about that.
Right.
He's on the western end of the district.
Right.
Yeah, as far as, now, I will say, first off, Robert Murphy was the only one that did fill out our questionnaire. So I do appreciate that, taking
Right,
the time to
right,
do that. And
right,
that really
right.
shows, because once again, we are Republicans and we're a third of the district, and I don't think that our voice should be discounted.
Right.
Because I think sometimes people think this is just a Democratic city. Well, our ward isn't. Anyways, what we're talking about taxes. So we're kind of, for the other candidates, we're going off their Tribune and sometimes questionnaires. You know, but there wasn't a lot of, I don't think, solutions perhaps in property taxes.
The one thing, none of them, and this is always gets to me, is none of them are interested in cutting spending.
Right, right.
And none of the questionnaires, no one ever brings up. It's
Right.
all, and when you find out in the city of Chicago, revenues have gone up quite a bit over the last
absolutely.
5-10 years. And then other streams of revenue that we never had before,
Right.
like which I hate, the traffic.
Right, right.
You know, you're thinking of millions and millions and millions of dollars that are generated, and it never seems to be enough.
Well, and we never that's the thing. In Illinois or Chicago or Cook County, we never have a revenue problem. It's always, you know, how we spend the money. Because it's usually more money is raised. Well, hey, let's just find more ways to spend
Right.
it. Yes, there really isn't looking to cut things.
But Robert Murphy has brought up the idea of more accountability,
Yes.
and so did Joe at the meeting.
He
Brought
did.
up as far as doing proper accounting
Right.
and doing forensic accounting. You know, and these are things that have never been done in Chicago.
Right, and in Murphy, in his answer to us, he did talk about looking at downtown assessments where you have these big companies that are getting lower, they're appealing and using the services of Mike Madigan, Ed Burke,
Right.
to get their taxes lowered, which, you know, us out here in 39th Ward, we don't have those same abilities to get our taxes lowered
Well,
in that
big
same
story
way.
when Sears Tower was sold.
Right.
And it became Willis Tower. Right away, they went for more tax cuts.
Right,
And
right,
who they
right.
hired? They went to Madigan.
Yeah.
So,
the same people raising your taxes are, you know, the ones being hired to lower them. So I do appreciate Murphy mentioning that, and that we
Right.
need to have accountability through that. I mean, absolutely, we need transparency.
and
That's-
I think Murphy was pretty good on the whole TIF thing, because
Right.
there's that other hidden
Yeah,
tax in different zones, and none of that money seems to ever, you know, we talk about the blighted areas of Chicago, and none of the money, none of it's blighted. Some of it gets a little bit done, but
Right.
it's like they talk about it, but
Right.
nothing.
I mean, I will say, I think one of Murphy's cornerstones of his campaign does seem to be transparency, and he's kind of, because I mean that kind of goes back to, he's been kind of railing against the machine for a while. So I mean that's the big thing. We need transparency. One last thing that I will say on the, interesting, you said the empty lots and stuff. I know Casey did mention about that in one of his questionnaires too, about how if we have city land that's not being used, we need to develop it and tax it. I mean, it shouldn't just be having these open spaces that we're not getting any revenue from.
Well, it'd be nice if we had an industrial, because the
Good
majority,
point. Yeah.
the vast majority of vacant land in
Yeah.
Chicago is from the manufacturers that
Right.
were ran out of Chicago.
Right.
And this is the one thing we can never forget, that Chicago used to be the industry center,
Right.
the electronic center of the
yeah.
entire universe.
And we've lost that.
And we lost all
Yeah.
that. So a lot of it is vacant land. And the only way we're gonna get these people back to move in, we're gonna have to come up with real intelligent ideas
Right.
to bring back industry. We need industry.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe we should just go to the sixth question we had. That was kind of what I was dealing with, was how do we bring manufacturers back?
Right.
And I do like what Murphy talked about, because he answered our question here, you know, that he will seek out that development, which I think is important.
Right.
To not just be, hey, what comes to the 39th Ward? Hey, we're a nice part of the city, so hey, come invest in us. But you actually have to see, you know, go out there.
Well,
do
and
that.
the thing that a manufacturer, any business wants is intelligent, a potential of hiring intelligent people.
Right.
So in the 39th Ward, with the demographics of the people living here, and most people are very well educated in 39th, everybody'd want to be here. And there are certain zones
Right.
that you could bring business in, especially on the
Yeah.
northwest side here.
Yeah.
So it really is the responsibility of the local alderman to go out. So I was happy that.
Yeah, I did like that. That he mentioned actually going out there and really
that's real
targeting
important,
them.
because there are companies that would still come to Chicago, but the whole industrial base, this should be from top down, and I'm not even hearing this out of any of the
No.
mayoral candidates.
Oh, that's a whole nother.
Right.
The mayor. I don't know. We'll get into the mayor because that's
Right.
that's crazy. What else? Okay, what was? Let's go on to our next question.
Next question was,
Oh, pensions. Is that pensions? Yes, pensions.
right,
I mean, and we're also going to. We both attended one of the debates too that
Right.
we watched at the Irish Heritage Center. You know, pensions. It's interesting. All the candidates, they were pretty similar in the idea that pension can't be cut by Supreme Court. You can't reduce benefits and such. It is interesting. I don't know. Duplichin, I don't think he gave us very much more detail on that. And Nugent, her only solution on pensions was to mention more, hey, here's how we can do revenue. But that's not really a solution when you have this big hole, pension debt. It doesn't really solve it. New revenue is not going to fill that. But I think with Murphy and Casey, they did have solutions. Murphy mentioned that they need a reamortization of the pension liability. Okay, I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but I appreciate, that's something to investigate. And then Casey, he was the only one that did offer up the idea of a tier 3 for workers.
part-time or new employees.
And it actually, especially
Because
targeting
from his
younger workers.
perspective, that a lot of people in this day and age don't want to,
Right.
they're not looking for a career.
They're not staying in the same job for
Right.
35 years.
Right.
And that's true. Younger folks are moving jobs. So have
if
some
they
form-
had a job where the city came up with a proper 401k,
Right.
they wouldn't even worry about the pension.
And
Because
have
the
an option,
401k, the one thing people have to understand, the
Yeah.
beauty of it, is that that's something that's yours
Yes.
forever.
And it's yours, and you can take it.
And
with
there's
you.
no
It's
reason
portable.
that they couldn't take Social Security
Yeah.
out of these employees also. I mean, the whole concept of not paying Social Security is that the money be invested better.
Better, yeah.
But all these unions and all these different organizations have failed
Right.
terribly
Right.
as far as investments.
Well, I will say Murphy did mention that too in his questionnaire, where he talked about how the city has not made their payments, and it's absolutely true.
Right.
They did not.
And the state of Illinois didn't
State of
either.
Illinois, yeah.
Right. They're both guilty.
I mean, that's it. I was a former CPS teacher, and one of the things that irritated me to no end was the CPS pension was fully funded in 2000.
Right.
And then they stopped making payments. They made a deal with the state legislature, Daley did,
Right.
they don't have to make their payments.
So
and
it's irresponsible, but it's
totally
on all
irresponsible.
levels.
But all levels, yeah, you see it across the
Right,
board.
Right.
So I appreciate Casey's idea of the tier 3, where you have the option of some sort of 401k. I mean, it's an option; it's not mandatory, especially for those younger workers that may not stay
Right,
at that job.
right.
I mean, I think at least it's a reform, and it's innovative thinking. So, okay, what else? Our next question.
Losing population.
Oh, losing population. Yeah, Murphy talked a little bit about that because he answered our questionnaire once again about it being opportunities. He says not so much taxation, but opportunities and jobs. I don't know. I kind of maybe would disagree with that because I see most people up here that taxation is the reason why they're going to leave. But I think there is something to it. The more opportunity and jobs you have, more people are likely to stay.
Well, see, now I'm old enough to remember in the 39th ward here, half the people used to walk to work.
Yeah.
I mean, where I'm at over by St. Ed's, Banker's Life.
Right.
I mean, 4,000 or 5,000 employees, and most of them people walk to work.
Right.
Skillsaw.
Well,
they would walk to work.
And bringing that up too.
How many people live in the 39th ward are jumping on the highway,
and going on the suburbs.
going to the suburbs?
Well, and also you think about the idea, if we can bring more investment, more jobs here, that also goes to the idea of, when they talk about affordable housing, because one of the biggest things is people are having to, take public transportation miles and miles to get to jobs. So if we can get more jobs in the neighborhood, that can work on that front too.
Right. So the whole direction of the city has been off
Yeah.
for the last 20, 30 years.
And then we talked our next question dealt with violence in the city. and how they would deal with that, because it's a concern.
Well, we should mention that Joe brought up, if laws were enforced,
Right, right.
you know, not that we need more laws, not that we need more gun laws or
Yeah.
anything, but if laws were enforced,
Right.
but we have the county, I mean, they're letting people walk,
Yeah.
skate, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the answer to it was like one of the Tribune or sometimes asked about,
Right.
guns. And I think that was like his first thing was enforce the laws. Because some of the other candidates didn't quite, I mean, Nugent, she was kind of going off, we need more laws. I mean, we need to enforce what's on the books.
Right.
And
But
then,
I also believe, and here's the greatest statement, communities, it's just like you were talking
Right.
here. The community's
Yeah.
gotta be their own police.
Yes.
The police are secondary. It's really,
Right.
I mean, when you see these little signs in the window that says, neighborhood watch,
Right.
that should mean something.
Well, and
People should be paying attention for each other, because the payback is
you don't
great
have
for
that,
everybody.
right. And I do think that kind of goes a little bit to Casey.
Mm-hmm.
He has that, I think, definitely in his favor. He's worked a lot
yeah,
with
he
his
has worked.
community. And I totally respect his views on education.
And yet Kedzie, Lawrence,
Oh, yeah,
Foster,
I mean, the fact that
that
he's-
is the rundown area
It's
of.
definitely, they've
of-
got issues,
Right,
yeah.
right.
And I think the fact that he's started mentoring programs, I mean, that's really cool. I mean,
Right.
that's how you know,
Right.
we need to have proactive, before crime happens.
Right,
I
right.
respect that. I mean, and then what was our last question? Was dealing with machine politics, because we talked about our last one. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. We've had a ward that's been dealing with. They've had a family control it for 53 years.
Right.
I'd like to see change. And I think Murphy does that. I think he's fought that. I mean, that's kind of his main thing he's running on. I mean, I don't know, Nugent. I mean, she's kind of just. I feel like she's been I don't say propped up. That's not the right word. I met her once. She seems nice enough. But
And she had a good job, and
she's had a very good job. She has a very good resume and a
Right.
very good experience.
But I don't think she's going to be rolling her sleeves up. And,
No, I mean, I feel like it's kind of be same old, and I
Right,
think we
right.
need some change. It's definitely
Right.
change, and I see that that's what Murphy's running on. Casey, he's a go-getter. I mean, this says in the community, this is what I'm going to do. I mean, I'm not saying Nugent isn't. I mean, obviously she's volunteered in the community and this, that, but I don't know. I want that innovation. I don't know, and I don't know. I don't think Duplichin is connected with machine either. I don't know. I could be wrong with that. I don't know as far as machine politics.
Well, I think we're going to have to sort of come up with some decision here.
Right. I mean, looking at it from my own perspective, I'm just definitely leaning more toward Robert Murphy and Casey Smog. I'm saying his name wrong. Smagala. Sorry, Casey.
I agree with you there, of the two.
Yeah.
And Murphy did answer our questions, and
appreciate that.
that's the big
Yeah.
plus. Casey, my whole fear, if we endorse somebody,
Right.
and then they turn around and be so far to the
Right.
left that we'll be embarrassed.
Well, and I will say one thing about both of them. They did say that they were in favor of a progressive income tax at the state level.
Right.
Which, there's an element of me that makes me a little nervous. But at the same time, I don't know. I respect them actually saying that they are in favor of it.
Right.
Because, I mean, I don't know what Nugent thinks on that. She
Right.
hasn't said either way. Or
But then the
Duplichin.
other thing I want to point out, when they're saying marijuana as revenue, this whole marijuana is going to be the solution. I can't tell you how,
Yeah.
I have known people that smoke marijuana and get very evil.
Right.
In
Well-
my younger ages,
And I think to always put all our eggs in one basket.
No,
I mean, it seems like you see it across the board if you go to different wards too. Everybody's like, yes, it's marijuana, it's video gaming, it's casinos.
Right.
They're all in favor of it.
and it's everything that's bad.
There are vices.
But I really think that someone along the line's got to say, we got to cut the budget.
Yeah,
We have
yeah.
to start looking at waste and fraud. We got to
Right.
start in City Hall, in I mean, just in the ward office, how many paid
Yeah.
positions are there? Can that be cut
Right,
down?
right. Well, they did ask that question. I don't want to answer it because I forget who answered what. They asked the question about reducing the size of aldermanic wards.
Right.
And we need to do that. Why do we have more aldermanic wards than New York City?
Right.
That's
right,
ridiculous.
right.
I mean, there are ways to cut, and we're just not very good about it in Chicago. Most people
Right,
running,
right.
they think it looks better. They don't think people will vote for me if I do this. Where I don't know if that's true. I mean, I look at, once again, about a third of the district's Republican
it
here.
isn't that, if we could reduce what each ward costs,
Right, right.
then I understand, you know,
Yeah.
that if they could cut the cost per ward.
Right.
And I mean, I'll even go back to Harold Washington, when he was elected, he made sure every ward shared in the same amount of money to
Right.
fix the streets in
Right?
there.
Because potholes, you're going to have them all over the city.
Right, right.
And the last thing I'd say, just
So-
so
okay, go
voters
on.
know what their main issues were, because that was one of the last questions. What's the most important issue for the 39th Ward? They were asked that. Nugent said it was crime. Duplicant, he said having a voice. And we haven't had that, so we're having that. And then Casey's was providing city services for what we pay in taxes, that's true. And then Murphy was also city services, and also the idea of kind of that independent voice being, kind of like what Duplicant said, but independent, more transparency. So just
But
for
as
voters there.
But as a Republican,
Yeah, it's hard.
I really don't want any service. I mean,
Yeah.
I would prefer
Well-
I mean,
I'd like the idea, though, of services for the taxes I pay. I mean,
Right,
I definitely
right.
want my police service or my fire,
Right.
and not feel like maybe somewhere else in the city they're getting more for their money,
Right.
and we're paying a lot in taxes.
right.
Or
right.
we all want good schools,
Well, even the schools should be looked at.
Yeah.
I mean,
There
you
should
know,
be. Whoa! Don't start me on CPS. I think there's a lot of ways CPS could cut money. We've done a lot of great things. I'm a CPS teacher. Husband's a
Right,
principal.
right.
My kids go to CPS.
Right.
But there are definitely ways things could be cut, or we need to look at consolidating schools. I mean, that's not 39th Ward. Our schools are not undercrowded.
Right.
But throughout the city, that is a big issue.
Right.
Because the kids aren't getting an education if you have a school of 200 kids.
And I think they've gone a little bit out of whack with these, too many of these magnet schools, too, or these
well,
private
and that's funny. They
schools.
did mention that. Both Casey and Robert Murphy mentioned that, and I think they're right on about that.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have neighborhood schools. We need to invest in them. It's nice to have magnets, but we need to have neighborhood schools and having them aligned to the high schools.
To the high school.
Yeah. So
right,
you're
right.
actually.
Well, actually, I guess we should conclude
Yes.
that
Well, hopefully, I don't know. Maybe
what Chicago really needs is real Republicans
Right.
to run it.
a Republican voice in these wards, or at least having a voice. Maybe that's it. And
Right.
and that's why I think for us doing this video is just to give people information of what these candidates are, and how we can at least make our voice heard.
Right. I
Yeah,
agree.
go out there and vote.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.